Your sister's housewarming party was so lovely," Mom said, her voice light and warm, as if she were talking about the weather. "When are you going to catch up?" I froze. The tap was still running, water spilling over the sink, but I didn't move. I stood there holding a plate I had already washed twice, my fingers numb. Mom was behind me, scrolling through her phone, smiling at pictures I hadn't seen before, and wasn't meant to see. She turned the screen toward me. My sister stood in front of a beautifully decorated house, fairy lights glowing behind her. Relatives gathered around her like she was the center of the universe. Everyone looked happy, proud, complete. I forced a small smile. "It looks nice." Mom nodded enthusiastically. "Everyone kept asking about you. You should have come." I didn't say what I wanted to say, that no one had invited me, that I found out about the party the same way strangers did, through photos and quiet conversations that stopped when I entered the room. "When are you going to catch up?" She repeated gently, "Catch up." The words echoed in my head long after she left the kitchen. Catch up to what? A life I helped build but was never allowed to live. I remembered the first time my sister talked about buying a house. I remembered how excited she was, and how scared I was of my own empty savings account. After helping her pay off debts, she never mentioned to anyone else. I remembered telling myself family comes first. That night, I sat alone in my room while laughter echoed faintly in my memory, laughter I wasn't part of. My phone buzzed with messages from distant relatives praising my sister's success. None asked how I was doing. None wondered where I had been. It wasn't jealousy that hurt. It was erasure. I had always been the strong one, the one who didn't complain, the one who adjusted. Slowly, without noticing, I had become invisible, useful when needed, forgotten when not. I stared at the ceiling and felt something crack inside me, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet realization settling in my chest. I had given so much of myself to people who measured love by achievements, not sacrifices, and in that moment, I understood something painful but important. This wasn't just about a party I wasn't invited to. It was about a life where my absence had gone unnoticed. As the lights outside my window flickered, I wiped my eyes and whispered to myself, "One day they'll see." I didn't know then that this quiet pain would become the beginning of my strength. People say time reveals the truth, but for me, it was memory that did. After the housewarming party, I couldn't stop thinking about the past, about all the small moments that had quietly shaped my life into something smaller than it was meant to be. Every success my family celebrated carried a shadow I had learned to ignore. Now, that shadow was standing in front of me, asking to be seen. I remembered my first job. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid just enough to keep the house running. I handed over my salary without hesitation, telling myself it was temporary. Just until things get better, Mom had said. Things did get better, for everyone except me. When my sister needed help, I stepped in without being asked. Fees, rent, emergencies. I became the solution that no one mentioned out loud. Relatives praised her determination, her intelligence, her future. I stood beside her, smiling, while my own dreams were quietly folded away like old clothes no one wore anymore. The betrayal wasn't sharp. It was slow and polite. Friends I once trusted stopped calling when my life didn't look impressive enough. Invitations came less often. Advice came more often. You should try harder. You should be more like your sister. Even my struggles were compared. When I finally spoke up once, just once, about how tired I was, how lost I felt, I was met with silence. Then a laugh. "You're strong," someone said. "You'll manage." That was the moment I realized strength had become an excuse for neglect. At family gatherings, conversations flowed around me, never through me. Plans were made without asking my opinion. Decisions were announced, not discussed. I wasn't part of the future. They had already decided my role in the past. The most painful betrayal wasn't from strangers. It was from the people who had benefited the most from my sacrifices. I watched my sister grow confident, admired, supported, standing on ground I had helped level. And yet, when she spoke of her success, my name never came up. Not even as a footnote. One evening, after another exhausting day, I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. Tired eyes, forced calm, a smile that had learned to survive without meaning. That night, something shifted. Not anger, not hatred, clarity. I finally admitted the truth I had been avoiding for years. I had been loyal to people who were only loyal to my usefulness. And in that realization, I felt a strange mix of grief and freedom. If they could turn their backs so easily, then maybe it was time I stopped standing behind them. This was the end of my quiet obedience, and the beginning of something they wouldn't see coming. I didn't announce my decision to change. There was no dramatic goodbye, no emotional confrontation, no long explanations that would be misunderstood anyway. I simply became quiet in a way I had never been before, not the silence of weakness, but the silence of someone who had finally chosen themselves. I stopped asking for approval. At first, it felt uncomfortable, like walking without support after leaning on a wall for years. I resisted the urge to explain my choices, to justify my absence, to remind people of everything I had done for them. I realized that those who never listened before would not suddenly start now, so I saved my energy. Mornings became sacred. I woke up early, not for anyone else, but for myself. I learned new skills late into the night, fueled by a quiet determination no one could take credit for. Each small achievement became a promise I kept to myself, a way of rebuilding trust with the person I had neglected the most. I stopped attending gatherings where I felt invisible. When questions came, "Why don't you come around anymore?" I answered politely, briefly. No bitterness, no blame, just distance, and in that distance I found peace. There were moments of loneliness, yes. Healing is not loud or glamorous. Some nights, old memories tried to pull me back into guilt. "They need you," the voice inside whispered. But I had learned the difference between being needed and being valued. As days turned into months, something remarkable happened. I began to change, not in ways others could immediately see, but in ways that mattered. My posture straightened. My laughter became real again. I started dreaming without apologizing for it. Success didn't arrive like a celebration. It arrived like a quiet sunrise, slow, steady, undeniable. I didn't post about it. I didn't seek applause. I let results speak in rooms where my explanations once failed. The sweetest part wasn't proving anyone wrong. It was no longer needing to. I noticed how differently people treated me when I stopped offering myself so freely. Respect replaced expectation. Curiosity replaced dismissal. The same people who once overlooked me began asking questions, sensing a change they couldn't name. But by then, I had already won. Not over them, but over the version of myself that believed love had to be earned through sacrifice. Silence had taught me discipline, pain had taught me clarity, distance had taught me self-worth. I no longer waited to be seen. I was building a life that would eventually speak for me, calmly, confidently, without asking permission. And when the time came for them to notice, I knew I would be ready, not with anger, but with peace. Because silence hadn't made me invisible, it had made me unstoppable. They noticed me on an ordinary day. There was no announcement, no dramatic reveal, just a subtle shift in the way their voices changed when they spoke my name. I could hear it in the hesitation, in the curiosity that had replaced certainty. The version of me they thought they knew no longer existed. Mom was the first to say it out loud. "You seem different," she said one evening, watching me closely, as if trying to recognize a familiar face in a stranger. "Stronger," I smiled softly. "I am." She didn't ask how. Perhaps she already knew the answer would make her uncomfortable. My sister came next. She visited without warning, standing at my door with uncertainty written all over her confidence. The same confidence everyone had celebrated, the same confidence I had once protected. "I didn't realize how much you did for us," she said quietly, eyes lowered. "I was so focused on my own life that I forgot to see yours." Her words were sincere, late, but sincere. There was a time when that apology would have shattered me. I would have clung to it, accepted it as proof that my sacrifices mattered. But I wasn't that person anymore. "I never wanted credit," I replied. "I just wanted respect." Silence filled the room, not awkward, not heavy. Honest for the first time, I wasn't trying to fix anything. I wasn't offering comfort or solutions. I allowed them to sit with the truth, the same way I had learned to sit with my pain. Mom's eyes filled with regret. "We pushed you to be strong," she whispered. "We didn't realize we were pushing you away." I nodded. Some realizations arrive only after damage is done. The sweetest revenge wasn't watching them feel guilty. It was watching myself remain calm. I had grown beyond the need for their validation. Their recognition felt like a letter delivered to the wrong address, meant for someone I used to be. "I'm happy for you," Mom said. "I'm proud of you," my sister added, and I believed them. But I also understood something deeply important. Love does not require me to return to places that once broke me. I chose boundaries instead of bitterness, distance instead of drama, peace instead of proving a point. That night, I sat alone with a cup of tea, watching the city lights glow softly through my window. There was no emptiness, only calm. I hadn't caught up to anyone. I had arrived at myself, and that was the kind of victory no one could take away.